To be clear, the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, has made it clear that their investigation has now established that he had been radicalized by a leftist ideology, which drove him to do this. That's just
I'm sorry, excuse me, when?
Yesterday, he said that.
No. When was he radicalized? In the 6 months that he did remote college?
Hi guys, Jason Bodine coming at you once again from Gadsden, Alabama. Welcome back to my channel. I need to start out here by making two quick but very important confessions. First of all, this is not the original intro that I recorded for this video. In the time it's taken me to record all my footage and assemble everything together, at least 3 more acts of political and or religious violence have occurred in this country, the United States. And I need to make it absolutely clear that while I do have some very strong opinions and criticisms of the things that people on both the left and the right have to say, that I do not in any way condone violence from anyone or against anyone for any reason whatsoever. We are all Americans, and this crap is unacceptable. Now, the second confession is that, and more relevant to what I'll be talking about here today, is that I've done some Charlie Kirk content since September 10th, but I wasn't really sure I should put out this one. That's because I'm taking a lot of big risks in the name of free speech and having to thread a whole lot of different needles at once in order to do it. Not only do I need to appease YouTube's censors to keep the algorithm happy, but though I'm not directly a member of or affiliated in any way with certain individuals or groups that may come up in the course of this discussion, I am, let's say, adjacent to a lot of them in my beliefs and ideas. This does not, of course, include Tyler Robinson or any of the people in his circle. What those people perpetrated is reprehensible to its very core, any which way you look at it, and is to be condemned. Now, a lot of people, especially on the left, but really on both sides, have been asking the same question you just heard Destiny ask in that clip I played at the start of this video. How and when did Tyler Robinson become so quickly radicalized to leftist ideology? And in this video, I want to explore that and show you just how easy it is to do that when the right conditions are met. Which brings me to one more very, very, very important thing. A disclaimer. Certain people or groups other than the alleged shooter and his roommate may be brought up during the course of this video. They are merely being cited as examples of what I am talking about and are in no way affiliated with or have any connection whatsoever to this case. So I don't want anybody getting doxxed or protesters showing up outside anybody's house. Got it? Good. So, with that in mind, let's start with why so many people are asking that question and move on from there. This question first started being asked with the news that Robinson, 22, had been turned in by his father, and a quote from an interview his grandmother, Debbie, did with the Daily Mail in which she said, quote, "My son, his dad, is a Republican for Trump. Most of my family members are Republican. I don't know any single one who's a Democrat. I'm so confused. Tyler is the shyest person. He has never ever spoke politics to me at all." Unquote. This one quote caused leftists to disavow Robinson as a far-right MAGA extremist, despite the phrases etched on bullet casings, chat logs from Discord, interviews with other people in his life, and text messages between he and his transgender roommate indicating that they were in a romantic relationship, all pointing to left-leaning, trans, and furry communities. And that, of course, led to Destiny's comments and the now infamous monologue that got Jimmy Kimmel in trouble with ABC and its affiliates.
The weekend, with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
The left as a whole doesn't seem to care about the evidence, no matter how strong it is. For them, it's all about placing the blame on anybody's shoulders but their own. The right, meanwhile, sees the evidence for what it is, and they do a lot of finger pointing at mental health, media propaganda, school indoctrination, and the rhetoric coming from politicians and pundits on the left as the cause of this horrible tragedy. The Christian right, now they take it a step further. They blame it on evil and immorality, pointing at all the people celebrating what happened to Charlie Kirk as proof. Now, I personally know a lot of openly LGBT people, and I know a few in the furry community too. And while it is indeed true that the majority of them are left-leaning in their politics and very strong in their opinions, the majority of them, or at least all of the ones that I know, are not radicalized left-wing psychopaths, in spite of the upbringing that the left wing wants you to look at, or any of those other things that the right wing wants to blame. They're just normal people who want to live their lives in peace. That's it. That said, the evidence is pretty dang clear, y'all. Tyler Robinson was radicalized in very short order, I might add, to leftist ideology. And the only question left, at least in this regard of it, is how it happened so fast. And the answer? The secret formula to fast brewing a Tyler Robinson is a lot simpler than either side thinks. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that all of the things that both the left and the right point to as evidence in their arguments don't matter. Of course they do. To the left's point, background and upbringing always play a part in every decision anybody ever makes in life. And to the right's point, if you want to radicalize somebody, you need a message and somebody to hammer it in. But all of those things are just pieces in a puzzle that is still incomplete. They can work on their own, but it takes time. If we want to see the full picture, to know how somebody was radicalized so fast, we have to reverse engineer the missing pieces by examining the ones we already have and then plugging them into the puzzle to see how everything fits together in a way that makes sense. Now, when we do that with Tyler Robinson, we're going to find that there are two missing pieces that we can reconstruct from what we already know. One is how Robinson's psychological profile made him vulnerable to radicalization. And the second one is the catalyst that connected him to the extremist message that led him to allegedly commit the horrific act that he's accused of. We'll also find that the aforementioned things do play a part in this, but don't fit into the puzzle the same way that either side thinks they do. Let's take a look at Tyler Robinson and all the people in his orbit. I think you'll see what I mean. I feel like I need to add a secondary disclaimer to the one I gave you at the start of the video by saying that this segment contains a lot of conclusions drawn by using logic and a little bit of intuition based on life experience to connect the dots between known pieces of information. And while none of the conclusions drawn from making those connections has been confirmed by any known source, I feel pretty confident in making them. I'm open-minded, though. So, if you have any information that might change my mind, then by all means, and in the spirit of the work Charlie Kirk was doing on college campuses, prove me wrong down there in the comments. Let's discuss. As for the first disclaimer, the reason for it will become apparent in the second half of this segment. Now, for our purposes here, I'll be steering clear of the court documents and the text messages. Those things speak pretty clearly about Robinson's guilt, along with his radicalization and his motivations and the details of the crime. But they don't tell us how he got there in that place mentally and emotionally in the first place. So instead, we'll be primarily focusing on Robinson himself and touching a little bit on his roommate, Lance Twiggs, to see if we can piece this thing together and figure it out. It should be noted that the FBI is investigating other people who may have been involved, but they have not released any information about those people, so we don't have any dots to connect there as yet. We'll start by listing everything we know about Robinson and his roommate. Now, keep in mind that all of this information is coming from second and third-hand sources in the forms of quotes from interviews from friends and family of the suspect and his roommate. Robinson himself isn't talking, and the only people that Twiggs seem to be talking to at the moment have a badge. Still, this will help us address the left and right-wing takes on the whole thing and help us build a psychological profile of the alleged shooter that will get us one step closer to finding out the real story. So, here's everything that we know about Tyler Robinson, first of all. 1. He was raised in a Trump-supporting Mormon family. 2. He was a 4.0 student at school. 3. According to all accounts, he's shy, quiet, and hardly speaks unless he is spoken to. 4. He became extremely political recently, especially about gay and trans rights issues. This is coming from his mother, I believe it was. 5. He hates conservatives, Christians, and Charlie Kirk. 6. He spends a lot of time on the internet talking to like-minded people in chat rooms, like on Discord, for example. 7. His username was found on at least one furry porn site. And 8. He shared a home with his live-in trans lover, Lance Twiggs. Now, here is everything we know about Lance Twiggs. And the reason that we're talking about Lance Twiggs is because the two were in a relationship, and that is going to inform on Robinson's state of mind. So everything we know about Lance Twiggs. 1. He was also raised by a Mormon family. 2. He hates Christians and conservatives. 3. He is involved in furry subculture. 4. He was kicked out of his house because he uses drugs, and he is also addicted to gaming. 5. He's in the process of transitioning from male to female, but as far as I know, because I haven't heard any differently, he is still morphologically male. And 6. He may have been seeing another man in addition to Robinson. So, what does the left and right have to say? And what do all of these facts really tell about the story? That's a whole lot of data for us to go on. Certainly enough for us to figure out what we need to find out here. And with all that much overlap in those data points, it's no big shocker that these two guys found each other. And the left wing and right wing spins on all those facts is no big surprise to anybody either. The left's immediate reaction to this was about as knee-jerk as it gets. They took Tyler Robinson's Republican family and the fact that Lance Twiggs was transitioning from male to female throughout all the rest of that data that I just showed you, and put those two things together to come up with straight MAGA dude. Left-wing logic being what it is says that Twiggs is a woman despite still having all a man's naughty bits, and Tyler Robinson is a Republican because his family is. Therefore, nothing to see here, folks. It wasn't us. Our rhetoric had nothing to do with it. Now, the right, meanwhile, they did something very, very similar when they took all those overlaps I just mentioned, again, threw out all the rest of the data and filled in the gaps with their own logic to come up with left-wing extremists indoctrinated by school and on the internet and radicalized by left-wing rhetoric. All cut and dried as far as either side is concerned. Except it's not. There's no question that the political violence in this country right now isn't the both sides issue the left so desperately wants it to be. That Tyler Robinson's ideology is anything but left-wing, or that what he allegedly did is monstrous and inexcusable. But every villain has an origin story, and when I look at that complete set of data points, I see a whole new story start to emerge, and it doesn't look good for either side. In fact, I'll go so far as to say that absent more data points that might disprove it, I'm confident enough to say that someday, not too far in the future, some true crime writer or filmmaker with a string of letters after his or her name is going to write a book or make a documentary coming to the exact same conclusions. I think it's safe to say that Robinson's 4.0 GPA in school and Twiggs' alleged other boyfriend besides Robinson are stray data points for our purposes that may point to motive, means, and opportunity in some way, but don't really get us where we need to go in terms of figuring out how Robinson got radicalized to the point he did so fast. So I'm not throwing them out the window like both left and right both did, just setting them aside for others covering those topics to deal with. What remains after we set those aside are another matter entirely. There's been a lot of speculation and conspiracy theories and people going, something doesn't add up. But if I'm piecing together the puzzle pieces the right way, it tells a story that makes sense and puts a lot, not all, but a good chunk of it, to bed. Tyler Robinson was raised in a Republican and, more to the point, devout Mormon family. This is what the left wants to point to when they call him far right. But when you add all those facts into it, and from the first data set of everything we know about Tyler Robinson so far, it actually tells the exact opposite story. He was shy, quiet, and only spoke when spoken to. Spending a lot of time in internet chat rooms, had a username found on at least one furry porn site, hates conservatives and Christians, especially Charlie Kirk. He was extremely political about gay and trans rights issues, and he shared a home with his live-in trans lover. Now, I know that's not in the order I originally listed them in, but it doesn't matter. What does matter is what they say together. This was a guy who, at best, felt different from and othered by his family and community. This would account for his quietness, his time in internet chat rooms, and his username on that furry site. When you can't find acceptance and understanding from the people around you, you're likely to be quiet around those people and seek approval elsewhere. And very often chat rooms full of faceless strangers who won't judge you is where you'll find it. And the rest of those facts tell you exactly what the core issue was. Tyler Robinson was and is likely either gay or bisexual and seeking approval anywhere he could find it. He wasn't a far-right extremist, and he wasn't a straight guy standing up for his trans girlfriend. This kid was a frozen turkey in a deep fryer on Thanksgiving morning. And it was only a matter of time before the pressure built up enough to make him explode. It's likely his dislike for Christianity and conservatives stemmed from that. I would even wager that particular deal was sealed when, being a member of a devout Mormon family, he tried the pray the gay away approach, and it didn't work. Now, quick but important side note here. I said a lot of this analysis is coming from intuition based on life experience. And that's why I feel confident in my conclusions, because I've seen it before. No, I've never had any extremist views, and I've never known anybody in my life who would even consider doing such a thing as he is alleged to have done. But I have seen different iterations of the rest of that tale play out with several different people in my life, and I can tell you that with somebody with those kinds of feelings that's stuck in that kind of situation, there's generally only 3 ways it can go, and 2 of them don't end well. 1, you can either get the help you need and learn to love and accept yourself without approval from others. 2, you can push those feelings down and attempt to convince yourself you're something you're not, which usually ends up in self-hatred. Or 3, you can lean full into it and hate the people who rejected you. And when you add another person into the mix, if that person isn't someone who has your best interests at heart, it can lead to self-harm in the second case or harm to others in the third. Unfortunately, for Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk and their family, the person Tyler Robinson ended up with was Lance Twiggs, and it led to the exacerbation of scenario number 3. And spare me with the Lance is a woman, so Tyler's straight argument, because it's BS based on the same logic that the Christian right uses to call gay people sinful. That sexuality is a choice. Lance Twiggs might identify as a woman in his brain, but his body is still male with all the dangly bits assigned thereto, and Tyler was able to perform. Just go ask any straight guy who's ever had the inkling to try swinging the other way and couldn't go through with it, or a gay person who's tried to go straight. Because I have, and I've heard some stories, ladies and gentlemen, and it's not as easy to overcome the preferences your brain is wired for as apparently both sides seem to think. In any event, I feel it's likely that for Tyler Robinson, Lance Twiggs was some sort of left-wing version of a beard. A man he could be intimate with and convince himself that he's straight because that person is transitioning to female. Now, let's talk about that relationship between them and how it led to where we are today. The psychological workup we've just successfully pieced together from all the available facts about Robinson paints a clear picture of a man who feels isolated from and marginalized by his family and community at large, is in search of the acceptance, approval, and belonging he can't get at home, and feels politically and or religiously discriminated against or persecuted by the people around it. According to multiple studies, such as the one cited in the video description from the NIH's National Library of Medicine, these traits are common to the most vulnerable in our society to both cult indoctrination and radicalization by extremist groups. Interestingly enough, these traits also happen to apply to the most progressive demographics of the political left in the United States, including, but not limited to, the LGBT community, racial and ethnic minorities, religious minorities, and women. Now, obviously the saying, every poodle is a dog, but not every dog is a poodle, has to apply here, since not all the people in those groups share those traits. But the most progressive demographics of the political left in the United States do include all of those groups. In any event, the detailed analysis we just did identified both missing pieces of the puzzle that we were looking for to figure out how Robinson became so quickly radicalized to leftist ideology. We figured out what about his psychological profile made him vulnerable to radicalization in the first place, and the catalyst in the person of Lance Twiggs that made it happen so fast. I don't think we need to do another lengthy analysis for Twiggs like the one we just did for Robinson. It seems pretty clear that he was molded by a similar background story, and judging from the fact that his attitude had already worsened to the point of his parents kicking him out, he was already radicalized himself by the time Robinson moved in with him and they became romantically involved. Now, does this absolve the rhetoric of the mainstream media, politicians like Hakeem Jeffries and the likes of Destiny and Hassan Piker? Absolutely not. They definitely played a part. But Robinson didn't just wake up one day and decide to do what he did. His involvement with Twiggs not only put him in a situation where he was exposed to that rhetoric on a daily basis and into contact with a group he shared a common ideology with, but it made it personal for him because in his mind he was protecting the person that he loved. In other words, all those things prior to that relationship set out Robinson's fuse, and then moving in with Twiggs lit it. Now, we started this video with a question, and I think we've pretty successfully answered it, so I'm going to stop it here. Please give me a like and subscribe to the channel, and agree or disagree, be sure to give me your take on this whole thing down there in the comments. Until next time, guys, peace.